Good evening. The conflict in the Middle East has clearly escalated. Of that, there's no doubt. Few were predicting 3 months ago that the aftermath of Hamas's attack on Israel would include British jets flying from Cyprus to bomb targets in Aden. The overnight US-UK strikes on the Houthis were more extensive than forecast and justified by both President Biden and Rishi Sunak on the grounds of economics and trade. But in seeking to clear safe passage into the Suez Canal for shipping from missile, drone and boat attacks, might we now be closer along the path to a wider escalation that could lead to a renewed energy shock? The geopolitics of this and the economics are intimately entwined. And the backdrop from The Hague to the Red Sea to Taiwan and Kyiv is that leading Western nations are not convincing the rest of the world of their take, a new world disorder. We start tonight with our diplomatic editor, Mark Urban, on those strikes against the Houthis.
Having delivered an ultimatum last week, the Americans knew that continued Houthi attacks required a response. The afterburners were lit last night. American and British aviators went to work.
It's essentially a very, very strong shot across the bows. And if you look at the statements from both Biden and the Prime Minister, they've essentially said they wanted to send the strongest possible message that these attacks on international shipping could not go unpunished.
Today there was a big demonstration of defiance in Sana'a, the Yemeni capital, and the Houthi military command promised more of the same.
They've won considerable support, not just in Yemen, but on the Arab Street more broadly, and therefore this plays into their narrative. I suspect that it also will justify them taking greater action in retaliation. We have to remember that they have experienced already about 25,000 plus airstrikes that the Saudi-led coalition has dropped over Yemen over the past 9 years of the civil war, and they were undeterred.
The strikes were delivered by air, 4 RAF Typhoons flying down from Cyprus, joining a largely American strike force. They flew 15 aircraft from the carrier Eisenhower in the Red Sea. There were cruise missiles too, fired from the American submarine, USS Florida, and other vessels. And the targets, Western sources say there were initially 60, including launch sites, radar, and places where the Houthis make drones or missiles. America and its allies hope that will signal their determination and at the same time reduce the Houthi stockpile of long-range strike weapons. Hundreds of these have already been fired at Israel and shipping in the Red Sea, so the question could arise of having to escalate to a bigger air operation.
The gradation would be to do something similar and ramp it up one level, to expand the target set, to increase the degradation that the Houthis would suffer. And then after that, it would be to mount some form of air policing operation that would look very much like a no-fly zone, that would allow you to monitor the activity continuously and suppress it. But that is a very expensive operation to mount 24/7 air operations.
And while the Houthis will continue to attack international shipping, none of it so far Israeli, they will aim to cast their action as being in support of Palestinians.
This brutal aggression will not dissuade Yemen from its position of support for the Palestinian people, and the Yemeni armed forces confirm their continued prevention of Israeli ships or those heading to the ports of occupied Palestine from navigation in the Arab and Red Seas.
The Houthis have big stocks of Iranian-supplied missiles, and as such, they form part of Iran's strategy against Israel and the US.
This does look like a fairly well-calibrated strategy by those involved in Iran's axis of resistance. Israel is encircled, and each of those elements in that axis, from Hamas to the west of Israel, Hezbollah to the north of Israel, the Iran-backed Shia militias to the east and northeast of Israel, and now the Houthis to the south of Israel, have been gradually ramping up their pressure This looks like it's part of a planned strategy, and it may well be that we've just walked right into it.
While Houthis have volunteered to fight, the chances of America conducting ground operations are near zero. But that Iranian connection also makes it hard for President Biden simply to do nothing, especially in an election year.